Dear students, welcome to the online classes of endocrinology. Today I will discuss about reproductive hormone, and first I will discuss about female reproductive hormone. So here you can see the various reproductive organs like ovary. So ovary can produce progesterone and estrogen, two important hormone, that is P and E. Then placenta, when during the pregnancy, it can produce progesterone, estrogen, and HCG, that is human chorionic gonadotropin. And uterus during pregnancy produces prolactin and relaxin. So actually, the hormones of reproductive excess are found from hypothalamus to uterus. So here, in the case of hypothalamus, these three hormones actually act as a reproductive hormone, that is GRH, gonadotropin releasing hormone, CRH, corticotropin releasing hormone, and oxytocin. And these three hormones from hypothalamus are reproductive hormone. Uh, while in the case of pituitary gland, the FSH and LH and prolactin. These three hormones actually produces from the anterior lobe, and FSH, LH are called gonadotropin, and third one is prolactin. These all three hormones are secreted from anterior lobe of the pituitary, while the posterior lobe of the pituitary produces oxytocin. So from the pituitary, these four hormones can act as reproductive hormones. So there is a tight coordinated function of hypothalamus, pituitary, ovary, and endometrium of uterus give rise cyclic predictable means that indicate regular ovulation. So there should be tight coordination between hypothalamus, pituitary, ovary, and uterus for the regular mens and cycle in women. So now here I have discussed about the regulation of female reproductive hormones. So here you can see in the first point, during the puberty, actually the hypothalamus starts secretion of the GnRH, that is gonadotropin releasing hormones. This GnRH is released from the hypothalamus and it comes to the pituitary gland. And in response to the GnRH, this pituitary gland starts production of FSH first. Here you can see this FSH is released from the pituitary gland and through the blood it comes into the ovary. So in ovary, FSH actually produce or induce the production of estrogen, and once the estrogen starts producing, it slows the FSH production and starts the LH production. And this LH or luteinizing hormone causes ovulation in women on day 14 of the menstrual cycle. Here you can see the ovulation in step 4. And further, this after ovulation, it is actually convert into the corpus luteum, and this corpus luteum starts production of or continues the production of progesterone and estradiol. And this progesterone actually prepares uterus for the pregnancy as well. And once there is no pregnancy, it can degenerate, and the level of estrogen and progesterone falls down, and the thus mens starts. So here you can see the tight regulation of hypothalamus, pituitary, ovary, and uterus for the regular menstrual cycle in women. Now here I have discussed how this tight coordination between these organs. So here you can see the hypothalamus actually start producing the GnRH. That GnRH is actually gonadotropin releasing hormone, and the receptor for this GnRH are found on the surface of pituitary gland, particularly in the anterior lobe of the pituitary. So once GnRH binds to the pituitary cells, or you can say gonadotropes. These cells are gonadotropes. So the gonadotropes starts secretion of FSH and LH. These FSH is follicle stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone, and release into the they release into the blood directly, and through the blood they go to the ovary. Here you can see the ovary, and the surface for FSH and LH. These two hormones are actually called gonadotropin. So gonadotropin receptor are present on the ovary cell surface of ovarian cell, and in the influence of these two hormones, ovary starts production of estradiol, that is estrogen, and progesterone, that is P. So the receptor for these two important hormones are present in the uterus, and particularly the endometrium lining of the uterus. And these two hormones are actually steroid hormones. So the receptor for these two hormones are present on the nucleus of the endometrium. So here you can see the coordination between these all organs. On the other hand, the pituitary also secrete two important hormones, that is follistatin and activin. The follistatin uh, decrease, or it can induce the FSH or decreased FSH secretion. However, the activin induce the increased FSH secretion in the autocrine or paracrine manner. Here you can see this is the autocrine manner. On the other hand, ovary can also produce some hormone, that is inhibin, and it can show the negative regulation in the pituitary to secrete less FSH and LH. On the other hand, when the level of E2 on P, that is estradiol and progesterone, is high, then E2 and P itself give negative regulation to the pituitary as well as hypothalamus to decrease the secretion of FSH and LH. So here I would like to explain how the birth control pill works. Actually, the birth control pills or contraceptive pills contain the estrogen hormone, and this when women take this estrogen hormone, so the level of E2 increases, so it gives negative regulation to pituitary and hypothalamus to decrease the secretion of FSH and LH. So once the FSH is decreased, it can decrease the follicular differentiation. So egg is not produced properly, and further it can inhibit the production of LH, and the ovulation cannot take place. Thus, the estrogen works as a contraceptive pill or birth control pill. Now, reproductive function of the hypothalamus. As I already discussed that this hypothalamus actually secretes important hormone, that is GnRH, and this GnRH is actually secreted in the neurons of the hypothalamus, and after they secrete in the neuron, they come into the blood supply and come to the anterior lobe of the pituitary gland. And this GnRH actually produced as a pre-pro GnRH first, and it can processed and it is also processed in the neurons, and it is coded by an important gene, that is GnRH1 gene. And after the transcription and of this and translation of this pre-pro GnRH, it is processed in the neurons, and it comes into the portal vessel through the axon, and this portal vessel actually connects to the anterior lobe of the pituitary gland. So thus GnRH is the 10 amino acid containing hormone, that is peptide hormone. Now the regulation of gonadotropin releasing hormone, actually this hypothalamus is actually induced by some locally produced etradiol, opioids, or during the puberty, hypothalamus starts secretion of GnRH, and this GnRH actually comes into the pituitary and it can activate the FSH and LH. And this, here you can see the secretion of FSH and LH, and these FSH and LH can go to the ovary and it can uh, start or induce ovary to secrete progesterone and E2, and this progesterone and E2 can give negative regulation to the pituitary as well as hypothalamus, as I already discussed about this negative regulation. Now, reproductive function of the anterior pituitary. So actually anterior pituitary, as I already discussed, is made up of many gonadotroph cells. So the gonadotrophes are the cells of anterior lobe of pituitary which can produce two important hormones, that are LH and FSH. And these LH and FSH secretion actually activated by the action of GnRH. Once GnRH is released from the hypothalamus, it comes to the pituitary, and in response to GnRH, pituitary cells or gonadotrophes start secretion of LH and FSH. So the anterior pituitary also helpful in the reproductive function. Now, reproductive function of the ovary. So as you know, ovary is the most important reproductive part in women. So here you can see the structure of ovary, and first actually the primary follicles are produced inside the ovary, and among them one become the dominant follicle or developing follicle, and this developing follicle actually convert into the mature follicle, and from this egg is released during the ovulation, and the remaining part of this mature follicle is actually converted into the corpus luteum, and now this corpus luteum can act as endocrine gland, and it secrete or it maintain the hormone level of progesterone and estradiol. And then this corpus luteum actually can convert into the corpus albicans, and this is degenerating corpus luteum, and once this is degenerates, the mens starts in women or period starts in women. So here you can see how important is this ovary for the production of egg or for the production of corpus luteum. So once this egg is released into the fallopian tube, it may be fertilized or it may not fertilize. So here I have shown the change in ovarian follicle, endometrium thickness in the middle panel, and the serum hormone levels during 28-day menstrual cycle in women. So here in the first panel you can see the phases of ovary. So here you can see the first phase is follicular phase. It starts on day 2 of the menstrual cycle, and it remain up to the 10th or 11th day of the menstrual cycle. So in this phase actually the follicle development takes place. Then from day 13 to day 16, this is called ovulatory phase. In this phase the ovulation takes place, means egg is released in the fallopian tube, and after the 16 day, this is called luteal phase, and in this case the corpus luteum formation takes place. In the middle panel you can see the thickness of endometrium. Actually during the mens the thickness is very less, but in later stages the thickness of endometrium is high, means it is thicker than the follicular phase. And most importantly, here in this third panel you can see the hormonal level of various hormones during the menstrual cycle, and that typical menstrual cycle of 20 days 28 days, that is normal in women. So here you can see the level of this progesterone. First, if you will see the level of progesterone, it remains almost constant up to day 14, but on day 14 it goes rise and it continue to increase up to day 24, and then after day 24 it comes down, and in day 28 it becomes lowest level. So this maintenance of this progesterone actually with the help of corpus luteum. On the other hand, you can see the level of this LH, luteinizing hormone. The level of LH is highest in day 14 of the menstrual cycle. Here you can see the level of LH, that is maximum on day 14. And after day 14, after ovulation takes place, the level of LH goes down very rapidly. And third important hormone, that is estradiol or E2 or estrogen. This estrogen level, which is denoted in the green line here, you can see the level of this estradiol or E2 is maximum on day 13 of the menstrual cycle, and it come down on after day 14, but it remain at a constant level up to day 26 or 27 with the help of corpus luteum. There are some other important hormone also, like FSS level. You can see the FSS level is not very high up to day 13, but it triggers on day 14 or 15 of the menstrual cycle. Here you can see the level of FSH is maximum in day 14. So here you can see the level of FSH, LH and E2, which is almost maximum in the day 13 to day 16 of the menstrual cycle. So this is the various hormonal level during the 28 days menstrual cycle in women. Now the function of corpus luteum, as I already discussed, this corpus luteum is important part of the ovary, and after the ovulation, corpus luteum actually act as endocrine gland, and it can maintain the hormonal level of progesterone and estradiol. When egg is not fertilized, I already discussed, it can convert into the corpus albicans, and this can degenerate and mens starts. However, when egg is fertilized, actually this fertilized egg or embryo or blastocyst starts secretion of HCG, that is human chorionic gonadotropin, that is HCG hormone, and this HCG hormone gives signal to corpus luteum to continue progesterone secretion. So once this progesterone secretion is continued, it can maintain the thickening of endometrium lining of the uterus and provide an area rich in blood vessels in which zygote can develop properly. And from this point, this corpus luteum is called corpus luteum graviditatis. So this corpus luteum graviditatis is important for the maintenance of the pregnancy. Now, role of FSH, as I already discussed, FSH is follicle stimulating hormone, so it is helpful in the formation of mature egg, or it is actually the egg development is actually depends on the FSH. If FSH level is proper, then only the egg quality in women will be good. And if you will discuss about the role of luteinizing hormone or LH, so I already discussed LH is important for the ovulation. So once the level of LH is proper, then only the ovulation process is proper in women. Here in this slide, I have shown that how cholesterol is converted into the various reproductive hormones using the 6 important enzymes. So actually here I have shown the ovarian cell. So inside the ovarian cell, the cholesterol can be converted into pregnenolone, and this pregnenolone can convert it into progesterone, and then it convert into the 7-hydroxyprogesterone. Then it can convert into androstenedione. This androstenedione can convert into testosterone further, or it can finally convert it into the estradiol. So here you can see from cholesterol to estradiol conversion in the ovarian cell. Now the hormonal regulation of human lactation. So this is also important process in women after the childbirth. Actually, this stimulation of nipple by the baby suckling and initiate the action potential. Here you can see the stimulation of nipple by the suckling of baby, and it is initiate the action of potential in the sensory neurons. So sensory neurons mean it stimulate the hypothalamus, and once the hypothalamus stimulated, it can stimulate the pituitary gland to secrete oxytocin from the posterior lobe of pituitary and prolactin from the anterior lobe of the pituitary gland. And this in actually oxytocin stimulates the milk release from the breast, and prolactin stimulates the additional milk production in the mammary gland. So apart from these two important hormones, other hormones are also important in human lactation. That is progesterone. It influences the growth of alveoli and lobes of the mammary gland. Estrogen stimulates the milk duct system to grow and differentiate. And prolactin, I already discussed this. Prolactin is important for the production of milk. Growth hormone is also important for the milk production. ACTH, that is adrenocorticotropic hormone, and glucocorticoid hormones are important also for the lactation. Apart from that, TSH is also important for galactopoietic activity, and oxytocin actually helps in the contraction of the smooth muscle of uterus during the childbirth, and it is also important for the contraction of mammary gland. So that's all about the female reproductive hormones. So actually I have discussed the tight coordination between hypothalamus, pituitary, uterus, and ovary. So hope you understood it. If you have any problem, you can contact me on my WhatsApp number. And next time I will start a new topic, that is male reproductive hormone. Till then, please stay at home, stay safe. Thank you.